Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the LPL English broadcast. My name is Jake Hysterics, but I am joined by a very special guest for this broadcast. It is the one and only Kelsey Mozer, who has taken time off of co-streaming the LPL itself to join us on the official broadcast. Kelsey, a huge welcome. We've wanted to get you on the show for so long, and finally here, starting with AL versus JDG, we welcome you properly.
Thank you very much, Hysterics. I'm really excited to cast this series in particular. I know this is going to be a very exciting matchup, especially in the jungle. Looking forward to seeing Xiaohao's aggression come out and a little bit of Kanavi's farm up and carry style going into this one.
It's exciting, isn't it? And look, you know, running into AL versus JDG, ladies and gentlemen, we are at a bit of a delay here. Introing the series, we are going to be jumping into pick and ban. But of course, we had to give you a proper welcome. I like this. Our graphics team wanted to do the same thing. It has been a long time of you following the LPL, and that's why this is such a big deal, because your information, your knowledge had to come onto the broadcast at some point. Even though it took so long, I'm glad we finally got to that point. As let's start talking about picks and bans, Kelsey, because game number one's already underway. As we said, it is at a delay. That's why chat's in prison at the moment. But I want you to run me through what you see on your screen in the drafts, because I see a Rek'Sai. I see interesting junglers to start us off for game number one.
Yeah, we see the Caitlyn first pick, which typically we're seeing a lot of people look for split map strategies against the Caitlyn. So they're looking to clear the wave with the Jhin, which came out next, and then looking for a very aggressive jungle pick, Rek'Sai, which people love to pick Rek'Sai into Lee Sin because of the knock-up. I think Rek'Sai into Ornn is a little bit of a huge pressure on to Kanavi here. He's going to have to actually make something happen early on, especially with the Jayce. Sure. I think Jayce can actually lane very well into the Ornn if he spaces well, but that's going to be what I'm going to look for in this matchup, is just something to happen on top side, because I think bot lane are going to look to neutralize on JDG's side and hope that Caitlyn doesn't take turrets in their face.
So that's interesting to me, because especially seeing Caitlyn come out of anyone's legend, a lot of teams not letting it through, but a lot of teams kind of shying away for the pick, responding with a jinx, failure, a trade, one of another. If that's neutralized, then as Kelsey says, we're going to be looking at the top side. We welcome you to Summoner's Rift for anyone's legend versus JDG. Now, Kelsey, we had a full segment fleshed out. It's a bit unlucky that the first series between TT and LGD went to game 3, but I kind of feel like we expected that one, let's be real, especially against those two teams. For JDG, it's jungle v jungle, and again, Xiaohao's aggression needs to be matched, and for Kanavi to pick out the Rek'Sai is kind of interesting, considering that, like, it's not always that you think of Kanavi pulling out something like this.
It looks like we're getting a bit of an invade just to mark out the Rek'Sai. In the Lee Sin versus Rek'Sai matchup, one way that you can throw the Rek'Sai out of the game, just because he's not too strong until level 3, or excuse me, is basically to ward out, look for an invade level 1, and make sure that Rek'Sai can't really do anything. So we've seen a lot of these level 1 invades happen for Rek'Sai, but knowing that so many people are top side, Hope is going to go ahead and get a ward onto the red buff to try to just note any level 1 shenanigans that might set Kanavi behind.
Get that information on jungle v jungle. Opposite side starting the map, but 369 poking his head into ZDZ, and Xiaohao is going to get that information away anyway. And Kelsey, I wanted to ask you a little bit about what these comps are going to do, because if Kanavi is on something like the Rek'Sai, you talked about going to the top side, and I see a Jayce. I see snowball potential that for JDG would really escalate the poke coming into the mid game.
While I would say that JDG's front to back isn't awful, I do think that in general, if you're looking at the Caitlyn, you're looking at the Orianna, you're looking at the Ornn, that's going to scale up and have those ornaments later on in the game.
Yep.
Their front to back's going to be significantly stronger. So JDG is going to want to make sure Jayce is really strong, and then try to use the range advantage from the poke coming out from the Jhin and the Jayce to get rotation onto neutrals and poke people down before fights happen.
Do a bit of that poking earlier in the game in the bottom lane. Betty and Chocho with a good trade and 2v2, and already 369 pushing out ZDZ and now hit level 2. But to come back to that, I like that, you know, trying to poke them out pre-fight, 369 Hope. Important points for me, especially when, as the dredge line goes a little bit shallow here and missing trades back. Actually, a good little deadly flash, but it's blocked as missing, goes in for the knock-up. It's Ignite territory as well. The flash forward to Hope and the tongue lash from missing. JDG's 2v2. We talked about this neutralizing Kelsey, but missing, and Hope take it to a new level.
Yeah, that was pretty much a disaster, and then more action is happening in mid lane.
It is a disaster as well. Forge has to flash away. That's 2 summoners down on 2 carries. Anyone's legend getting absolute obliterated here in this early game.
Yeah, so the Caitlyn Nautilus is not typically something that I see as a pair a lot and have a lot of success with. And as soon as you throw that Q, instantly you know you're going to out damage. And Hope and Missing just taking advantage of that cooldown being down, instantly engaging on really, really nice engage from the Abyssal Voyage onto Missing, noting that basically Betty and Jojo were right by that wall there. It was really well done to see that. And then instantly Kanavi also trying to capitalize on mid, making sure that Yagao is going to get a more favorable back timing than the Orianna.
And look, Kanavi burned his own flash, but taking away mid lane flash, Forge now without the teleport as well. Yagao having double summoners up, and it looks like Kanavi is starting to rotate through his solo lanes, Kelsey. For ZDZ, the lane we talked about here in this early game, important enough now that 369 has the shove.
Yeah, this is, again, I think a lot of people think of takes as being strong into the Jayce, but Jayce pokes actually scales up quite a bit, so unless you're pressured to force or engage into it, not going to happen, and here we have an engage.
JDG's bot back, he might just have to flash this one out, does it early, but the Searing Charge is blocked by King Kanavi, jumps down on him, the Predator is destroying anyone's Legend solo lane.
And this is not what I expected from Kanavi, right? I kind of joked that he was,
oh my god, Kelsey, welcome to the LPL, by the way. Like, you've been co-streaming this for a while, but, you know, we kind of expect with anyone's Legend JDG early game heroes that you're not going to get much chance to speak this game, apparently, as Chocho even flashes forward. Not even going to let me hand off as the jungler returns on in, and Betty picks up the kill. Xiaohao playing the patient game as Missing pops his shield, but anyone's Legend finally getting something in this game number 1.
And anyone's Legend has to kind of make something happen in bot lane just to answer. They got the flash from mid lane happening, and this happening in top lane. The fact that CDC was walking up here, I think around this time in the game, you know that Kanavi just was mid, your jungle is heading towards top lane, so walking up and trying to get those creeps and the wave is crashing towards you is not the best. If you have a combo that's going to be able to pin the wave and present a dive on you. That was more of a hope game than anything from Kanavi, but definitely making it work. And just like I said before the action erupted in the bot lane, enjoying the aggression that's coming out from him, because I usually just think, oh, he's going to play the Xin Zhaos and the Lee Sins, and he's just going to full clear the jungle, and not much is going to come of it. But pairing well with 369, who had a lot of question marks when he swapped into JDG, and making sure that gank top is happening. Also making sure the flashes burn mid so that Viktor maintains prio and they prevent anything that looks like a 4-man dive onto the Tahm Kench Jhin, because you definitely won't do anything to that lane unless you have at least 4 members coming to that.
An important point. Coming back to it as well, I remember you're a big fan of Zoom, and I know you noted Zoom's laning in the 2020 period as Kanavi going to get spotted out here, just clearing a control ward. Another one placed down by Xiaohao. I want to talk about this important piece of narrative as Missing comes up. Forge with the shockwave, though. Moving down in front of Dragon. Looks like both teams are kind of gearing up the fight, but Kelsey, I'm going to come back to it anyway. I don't care. You're a big fan of Zoom. We know that. And for you, 369, what was he a downgrade coming into JDG?
So, I will get back to that. It looks like Kanavi's going to be
a classic Forge caught out. He has no flash. It was burnt before. Kanavi gets him. Xiaohao comes up there. Sonic waves in. That's interesting. As Kanavi almost level 6. Doesn't have the ulti to follow up, but Missing going back in. Forge and Xiaohao maybe just not the same wavelength.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I know that obviously Kanavi doesn't have the Umbrella and the knockup anymore, so maybe he thought that there was an angle there, but also the gravity field being down. Just generally speaking, you don't want to dive into...
Or this. I mean, jumping into Hope, he's a slither of HP left. Betty can't reach him, though, and they get out. Xiaohao takes Kanavi with him, though. And that's going to be a jungler trade for the Dragon. 5 kills, 7 minutes. Yeah, good luck to this one, Kelsey.
Some redemption arc there for Chocho's hook, since, you know, it's been hit or miss so far in this game, managing to land those, but both of the kills that anyone's Legend have so far have been off of the back of Chocho getting those engages. Chocho being more or less the leader or the aggressive member here, having swapped from AD to support in the past so that he can use more of a shot calling voice in these games. So nice to see that coming out from him so that anyone's Legend stay in this game.
In what has been, you know, a kind of seesaw game. We're back to even gold at the 7-8 minute mark. Dragon was taken by JDG, but Herald is now spawning. Chocho's already making the move up. You can see that Betty's wave state right now looks like it either just crashed in or... No, excuse me, opposite end. So anyone's legend focusing towards the top side, where 369 unaware to the fact that there's a 2v1 being pursued.
If there's a time here, I'm definitely feeling it a bit, and then of course he just uses his full combo. So it's a calculated bait to see if 369 can jump up and get a lose to his base. That's the line I'm gonna go with. Okay, you know,
Okay.
blow your full combo to see if you can get Jayce to trade.
Smart. Very, very smart. I feel like, you know, it's been smart plays this game at the very least. But 369 as he pushes out the wave. Hey, Herald spawned there, Kelsey. Anyone's legend still have Chocho on the move. Without an ulti is an important note, but Forge with Shockwave, a big deal. He's able to push out mid, and looks like no one's really looking at it for now. Both junglers just kind of hovering around the top side, while ADs kind of make their move to think about whether they're going to join.
You do see the supports rotating to it though, so I think both teams definitely want to fight for this, because if you're anyone's legend, you want to see if you can threaten something on the bot side and manage to drop the repelled mid so that you can rotate the bot and deny something from the Jhin or accelerate the Caitlyn a bit on plates. For JDG, you want it because you want to accelerate the Jayce,
yep,
like we talked about before, to kind of make that poke very impactful and allow him to win the sideline versus Ornn as the game goes on.
But for JDG, they've got a ward on it, but for now, the steal, no, not coming in. Xiaohao with a good smite down, and anyone's legend pick up the Herald. JDG decide not to fight for it in the end, as Hope just stuck towards the bottom side. He'll get a plate for it, being the Jhin. Not the fastest push here, Kelsey, but still for JDG, the immediate gold trade versus the prolonged one, with anyone's legend deciding it might just be Betty who benefits with the Herald going towards his top side.
So they are deciding to swap away from the Jhin just because it is hard to make a dent in that lane. As soon as Jhin comes back to the lane with the pickaxe and the longsword, he really easily just clears that wave with his combo, and it's hard to see the way that Caitlyn normally wants. Why we saw Jhin picked a lot of times into Caitlyn, it's just that Jhin into champs like Nautilus and Ornn is just going to be way less effective in fights later on in the game. So not the greatest answer into Caitlyn, but does do the job as long as you have mid-prio and are able to counter these types of denial.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of mid-prior going on at the moment for JDG's side, though. I'm just noticing this, Kelsey. It was a steal of the bottom side wave as well as bottom side jungle, I should say, from Xiaohao. He didn't put the Herald down. JDG's bottom lane rotates to the top side. But the most interesting part to me is that there's a Prowler's Claw on Kanavi for the first item. And the fact is, he's just been farming away, more to the style that we've talked about, despite his early ganks that have already interrupted us.
Yeah, he is 30 CS ahead, so, you know, if we're looking for a fed Rek'Sai, he's one level up at least, so maybe we can see him have an impact even as the game goes on. But like we said, the Jhin, the Rek'Sai, you're looking to Jayce and you're looking to Viktor to be the most effective members as the game continues. And ideally, you want to hit that mid-game area and really, really start to do some damage, start contesting the second and third dragon.
Some of the burst that comes through, I think as well, we did talk about the front-to-back nature of anyone's legend and how they're going to do it so much better with Ornn, with Orianna. I'm still looking at anyone's legend, how they get to that point, because JDG in the early game, the 1,500 gold lead here, we're getting those mythics coming across the board. Dragon in 30 seconds as well. I feel like a lot's going to come to how Xiaohao plays this bottom lane. As he gets spotted out by a ward, I don't, he's still spotted out. Herald's there, and anyone's legend want to build themselves up, but still no Herald options, he decides.
And the unsung hero of this game has been the Vision.
Okay, kick away. Kanavi.
Disengage. I don't think we're going to get any real action here. I think the Dragon should just go over to JDG, honestly. Basically, you have Viktor rotating a little bit earlier. If they want that, they should just grab this wave and be able to start it here.
Xiaohao just disappeared, so that confirms that JDG with 2 early dragons. And, you know, Kanavi's adding so much pressure here. When we were coming in and looking at the jungle matchup, I think we were expecting, you know, Xiaohao to match aggression or at least be this bloodthirsty animal that can either give or take games away. You know, it's that Rogue Warriors mentality that we saw from Haro in the past, Kelsey. I feel like Xiaohao definitely completes that for the new AL roster.
Yeah, and I think that he definitely has been looking for these things, but JDG did a very good job just making sure that they're constantly using the flow of basically the jungle clears to make sure that Hope missing, and then on the top side 369 are getting wards to spot out any action from Xiaohao. And so Anyone's Legend have not been as on point with their vision control, partly because they don't have these priority and pushing lanes that allow them to walk into the jungle and set up vision. And so Kanavi has had much more successful gank angles overall. But of course, that is selling short a bit, that the scoreline isn't too different in this game.
I mean, totally kill difference. Missing actually getting hooked in. Shockwave used on a one-man member. He flashes away. That's depth charge. 3 ultimates used on top of the Tahm Kench. Well, he's still not dead, and Chocho rocks a bullet to the face. Forge with the last. JDG now with the Herald through the mid lane. Call the Forge God. They want to re-engage. Missing finally the 5th ultimate used, but he doesn't die. Everything in the kitchen sink burn as he even escapes, but Ignite comes through with the unsealed spellbook from ZDZ. And finally missing drops while Herald hands over some gold to Xiaohao in the mid lane.
That was just way more trouble than it should have been worth, but the big winner here is 369. And then to pick up a little extra plate before plates fall, doing a lot of damage to this turret, and I think he's probably he's in a really good spot right now with the Eclipse. Early on in the game, the Ornn had to back a little bit earlier before he could afford the Warden's Mail, so that's why he's sitting on both a Brambles Vest and a Warden's Mail right now, with the Warden's Mail being much more effective. But taking a look at this fight, I thought that this could start out with Chocho having a very effective engage again, but Tahm Kench, with the kind of soft rework in the new season, gets increased effectiveness from that gray health when multiple champions are around, and just to buy a lot of time, doesn't go down until anyone's Legend involved, invests a lot of resources into making that happen. So both supports kind of having some hero moments there, but definitely think the big winner is JDG because of the advantage that 369 is getting on top side.
Yeah, after those, 4 or 5 ultis that came through, the Ignite was the only thing to tick him over. And now that those ultis are down, I'm curious as to what happens in the next couple of seconds. I should say 20, 30, because we've rotated enough time where Herald's going to be up, but Call the Forge Gold will be the only thing down, as 369 once again forcing ZDZ into a pretty uncomfortable space. And I want to point out that the solo lane is a 10 CS ahead of their counter opponents. The only lane that's ahead in CS is Betty, but you have to remember that Hope traded turret plating while Betty moved up for the first Herald, so it feels like for 80 carries, gold won't be too far off. And Kanavi even going to start the top side Herald here, Kelsey, so you can see 4 members of JDG moving up. Might even try to buy space for 369 to pull up first turret blood as well.
This is an interesting kind of LPLism where I feel like a lot of teams are just way more to go into these side trade escalation strategies. They don't necessarily mind giving over the turret to Caitlyn, where a lot of teams would be, oh no, you left Caitlyn in a side lane alone. That's not great. But investing all big resources into top side, using Jhin to clear the wave, and making sure that they're guaranteeing the Herald and that going down for 369 so that he's much stronger for the impending dragon fight that's going to be up in 1 minute, and be able to get those that poke off before Ornn has completed his mythic, is more the strategy that JDG wants to go with here.
I'm going to repeat what you said at the start of the game. The poke that comes through, Hope and 369, important members for that cause. We've also got a Manamune that's almost on the way for 369, so you're right, he's in a pretty good position. Hope as well with the Gale Force. Going to make 4 mythics for JDG versus the 3, and then almost there for ZDZ, as you already mentioned, the item build. Herald just about takes down mid lane turret, 12 HP at the end, so that'll sit there with a stiff breeze to bowl it over. 30 seconds before the dragon, Kelsey. This is going to be the 3rd dragon for JDG. And it kind of spelled the dooms that anyone Legend would have to fight after this one. They want to take it nice and early. JDG moving into River. And it looks like anyone's Legend will storm their way in for now.
And Hysterics, this is LPL. We should be excited about things like fights, small skirmishes, wild support engages, but I'm just really excited about JDG's vision control here. They rotated way early for the dragon, managed to get vision down, so now...
Missing, might be called out. He's looking for a knock-up though onto ZDZ. The Bellows Breath saves him, but missing again. The target does not net a win. Anyone's Legend focusing so hard on the support, and Chocho suffers for it. Forge with another couple of hits as Yagao follows him up. The zone control begins. A poke there, and 369 sending a message. 2 members dead, and Kelsey, I think JDG have just completely laughed this one off as missing still doesn't die.
So I'm gonna go back to the question that you asked earlier that we haven't really been able to answer, which was the question of 369 versus Zoom.
Oh yeah.
So the reason why, even though I would say that Zoom is generally a better top laner, I was excited for this trade for JDG just because 369 is going to be someone whose vocal comms and demand jungle pressure and acceleration. Looking in this fight here, you can kind of see what he can do and what, with the advantage that he gets. Almost every shot class landing, doing a significant amount of damage and health, willing to flash in to secure these kills. Yep. And of course the rest of his team, also no slouches. Hope, very effective ultimate, Yagao getting that off, so just a really nice, cohesive-looking JDG, whereas allegedly, you know, Zoom doesn't always call for resources when he has an advantage. He's much more of the weak side carry, if you will, and JDG really need a focal point in these 3 lanes, and I think that at the moment 369 is, at least in this game, providing that.
And even when JDG at the start of the split were looking down, I think 369 was one of their best players. Like, it took a while, this split, for Kanavi to return to form, and I think Kanavi is practically king of the jungle alongside people like Tarzan. You know, Wei's not having a great split, so you even push Kanavi further up than that. But my point being that the jungler of JDG having such a strong top laner as well feels like now they know how to ride with it. And you know, Kelsey, this has been a strange split for JDG. It's been a long time coming since we could talk them up and be excited about their gameplay like we are here in this game. As Missing wants to go all in once again onto Xiaohao. Kanavi's over the wall. Here's the knock-up on top of 2 members, and Yagao sends down the Chaos Storm. Kanavi wants in with the Prowler's Claw. Missing a bit deep this time, and finally, yes, he will die as 369 with the angle. Wants Xiaohao. Call the Forge God. Ram jams only Yagao. And anyone's Legend getting a pick up, the JDG fought hard to try and get the right.
That exciting of a fight overall, but I was excited about Missing's engage. Unfortunately, it seemed to backfire a little bit there, but we did get a lot of ultimates, or JDG I should say, did get a few ultimates out, and that's going to be pretty effective for them in terms of just looking for playing through sides, slow seesaw around, not necessarily looking for a fight in the coming minutes. So I think they're a little bit happy with that trade-off. They're not too upset that only Missing dies, and I kind of like that they look for it because they do want to feel that aggression. Because one thing we haven't talked that much about is anyone's Legend aren't out of this game yet, right? It's only a 3k gold lead, and they will scale way more on the front to back, which we know. I could talk about side laning all I want, but these teams, at the end of the day, they're probably just going to rush the objective and fight 5v5. Yeah. So from that perspective, you know, we're starting to look at the itemization on the Caitlyn. 2 items completed. We're not at a mythic deficit anymore as they were in the last dragon fight. So anyone's Legend starting to feel strong. JDG starting to feel that pressure. Okay,
well, 21 minutes in. I'll keep an eye out for some of these team fighting ultimates as well that I think are getting more and more crucial. Namely Forge, ZDZ as well, the soul liners of anyone's Legend. Well, they'll have to bring a fight around in minute 40 anyway, because Dragon's coming up. Now, in the bottom right hand of your screen, we did see that Betty, for some reason, healed in that last little fight. There was only an Ornn getting hit there, and it was about 2 seconds delayed, so I'm not sure what that was about. Just unfortunate. It's just worth mentioning as well. Got to throw in some criticism here. As 2 items are being struck, Kelsey. It's 21 minutes into the game. Dragon up in a minute 20 as well. I'm just noting that we're hitting 2 item power spikes on things like Kanavi, 369 as well, with the Mirror Mana about to be complete. The Shadow Flame for Yagao. That's going to pivot through the Shields of Forge, Chocho, Xiaohao. Like, there's a lot of usage out of that item as well. So for JDG, feeling pretty strong themselves as well.
And the vision control here isn't quite as strong. JDG going to have to use a bit of that poke to sort of look for that. But it looks like anyone's Legend are just kind of giving their hold or their control over that area to get the next group wave. Interesting that Nautilus is recalling now, so actually this should be a very free vision take for Missing at the moment. And then of course, Viktor getting that wave in early on, making sure he's guaranteed to rotate to the dragon about 30 seconds and contest that mid wave as it spawns. So just smart, basic macro structure coming out from JDG, just making it work. Engages down.
Starts out, gets on Missing once again. The kickback though doesn't turn into anything, and 369 gets out of there. And for JDG, they blink health buff, but Xiaohao himself gets dove by Kanavi. He runs in to sacrifice his own life. Both junglers are now dead, missing block by 369. Anyone's Legend, though, they lose QiuQiu once more as Betty's poked too. It's a nice curtain call, and ZDZ plans to block all the shots, but the poke continues to fly, misses one, and Betty, it gets sunk through. For JDG in front of the Dragon, they're just going to take themselves a free soul.
Yeah, this is a Hextech Soul coming out, which is going to be great for their composition, getting that true damage effectively, right? Because they are going to be up against this very heavily armored Ornn, and you already saw that some of those ultimate procs were only tickling him. But interesting here at the start of the fight, JDG more or less able to space, use the gravity field very well to zone, and Kanavi taking down Xiaohao, dropping as well, but as long as his team can carry the rest of the fight, he went pretty deep, you know. That would be a tank Rek'Sai move, if anything.
That's
but he does trade 1-for-1.
Yeah.
And none of the, like, QiuQiu's engaged, not connecting, and ZDZ's ultimate connecting when the rest of the team is not really in position to follow up with a lot of damage, made that fight go very well for JDG.
It's rough again, because I don't know if missing is a magnet or if every single fight, like, he just happens to be in the way. But the ultis keep being targeted for this Tahm Kench, and missing continues to churn out all the shields in the world. As for JDG with the Hextech Soul, big deal is going to be on the extra movement speed we come through, but 369 adding a bit of burst on top of the burst he already has with the 2 items fully complete. And for missing, as he zones out, anyone's Legend know they have to walk a little bit towards the Baron pit. Actually, Kelsey, I don't think they do, because Vision's there with the scrying, Scuttle Crab, which is going to give River control for some time for anyone's Legend, so don't have to face check it just yet.
If anything, you know, you have the Ornn having to address this wave, so this is a point where the next mid wave coming in for JDG is pretty much theirs, right? It's not going to be contested by anyone's Legend just because JDG have been ahead of them in these small macro decisions, as I pointed out before the last Dragon as well. So JDG, you know, once upon a time, a couple years ago, they were known as the smart team, and I gave them a little bit of flack for that because they do have a tendency to, you know, 5-man mid when the chips are down, but seeing smarter, more calculated mid-game map play coming out from them this game is really exciting and really cool to see, even if, you know, someone might say, oh, they're just sitting with Legends. Anyone's Legend have been picking up wins against some LPL heavyweights, haven't they, Hysterics? So,
oh, yeah.
Worth pointing that out.
I think it is. Is anyone's Legend better than we expected? But more so for JDG, it doesn't matter who they verse. You know, the mid-game in the past couple of splits has been rough around the edges. Let's be real. That smartest team line, you know, we use that on the English broadcast as well, but we haven't for about a year and a half. It's been since 2020 summer, since their fall at Worlds, where JDG have been absolutely down in the dumps. But in this split, in about week 3, I think, week 2, week 3, they came back, and JDG looking more so like this. Now, again, Kelsey's already told you that anyone's Legend, despite going up against the Hextech Soul, this is the comp that will scale better with the front to back. Does have the Ornn items coming through as well, so I think next play around Baron, next play around Elder, if JG can get any picks, Kelsey feels like the nail in the coffin that needs to come through sooner rather than later. Otherwise, anyone's Legend, given time, do have the space to bridge into this game.
And I will say the Hextech Soul gives them a lot of breathing room, though. They're able to position up very, very aggressively here, despite the fact that, you know, Ornn ulti is up, right? They can't
Oh no, QiuQiu's just dead. Golden Kanavi goes. All the forward god dead. Actually not done. The shockwave flushed away from him. In fact, no, just disappeared from, I believe. Kanavi had himself up, spell shield once again, and JDG with another pick. This turret goes down, and you're right, the breathing room for the Hextech Soul playing out dividends here in game 1 for JDG.
Yeah, I think Kanavi generally played that correctly. He was basically saying, you know, there are specific abilities that I have to avoid, right? I need to avoid the engage from the Nautilus, the engage from the Ornn, and the Orianna shockwave, and using his cooldowns judiciously to make sure that happens. Nice to see just a calculated siege play coming out of JDG.
Look at the replay again, Kelsey, because Xiaohao tried something on the back end while QiuQiu on the front side, and it looks like he didn't really expect the burst.
It does seem like, you know, QiuQiu, we know him, he's one of the OPL supports who doesn't always think before he engages, which we love to see because it always makes games fun and exciting, but When you look at that, you wonder what the communication is like on the team. Are they feeling extremely pressured to make something happen? Is it Cho looking for something to come out? What exactly is transpiring there? Because he did that engage, and I don't know if they wanted that exactly, or if they were just feeling like, oh, we're losing our tower, we have to do something.
True. You know, running out of options here. At the very least, look, for Cho a couple of times in setting up the engage this game against Missing or against anyone else from JDG, and it hasn't gone quite to plan. So feels like a kind of rough egg at this point, and with 55 seconds to Elder, with Baron still staring them in the face. For JDG, I love that right now, Yagao sitting in a bottom lane Kelsey. They've got so much vision control around this Elder. You can tell that JDG wants to make sure anyone's legend don't really know that they're going to be setting up around the Elder this early.
And because anyone's legends tend to address this top wave really, really late in general, right? JDG are able to just textbook, get the top wave in, make sure that anyone's legend feel pressured, and then that just gives them free dragon control continuously, right? And then for me, again, the star has been how coordinated JDG have looked in terms of their vision control and how well they're spacing, using their long-range advantages from Jhin and Jayce to make sure that anyone's legend can't walk into Fog of War for free.
I love, you know, like, coordinated vision control is different from just getting vision down as 369. Oh, that hurts. A Deadly Flourish connects as well. And look, Forge and Betty are just out of there. 369 wants to do it again, and he lands it through the Ornn. DDZ, not a big enough fridge at this point, more like a magnet. As JDG, they're like, okay, well, Xiaohao's on the bottom side, and with all that poke damage out, Elder's just going to be started, and I think taken.
Yeah, this should just be an Elder, and I think we've seen him a couple of times thread the needle on some of that poke, making sure that getting past the Ornn to the back line happened in the last fight as well, where you had the fourth shot coming out.
Hang on. They're going to still try, though. Xiaohao's low, though, as he steps on a trap, and Hope just gale forces for the kill. An early smite doesn't matter, as Elder's going to get the security. And JDG couldn't make it look more easy at this point. Betty standing still with Ignite going down. The fourth shot flashed away from. He tries, but 369 is on a tear. Might only be 1-0 and 10. But this Jayce and the other solo lane of JDG have come through clutch.
And they don't have any waves in position to rush for an end or to rush down these objectives, and they don't necessarily siege extremely quickly, so it's probably safer to look for recalls and get the Baron and secure that for the next push and close out that way. But very just clean setup. Of course, can't really fault anyone's legend for trying to look for that here, but nice poke from 369 to start things out. And not a lot in the tank to execute at this point, even though, you know, not every skill shot landed, but they looked for the contest, and JDG just playing it intelligently to make sure that it doesn't happen, and they get the Elder.
Yeah, smart team really feels like it suits the game one of JDG. You're right, we've been going on about it, but I think it labels them perfectly here in this game. You've been talking about that intelligent vision control now with Baron and the waves under their wing and the gold lead that is going beyond gold leads at this point. We can just assume that JDG are going to start pushing these side lanes in, get that last inner turret on the top side, and break down the base of anyone's legend. Scaling still there, but oh boy, this needs to go for another 20 minutes before JDG become irrelevant, Kelsey.
Yeah, another 20 minutes, and maybe if we turn back time and change the dragon, you know, that's that would be a good one.
That's true, just so
maybe
hard.
If we give anyone's legend a mountain soul, you know, that might help a little bit.
Okay.
That would be a good one.
That would have been good RNG. They would have gotten it anyway, but anyone's legend at least would have had some hope.
Or no, we just give it to them for free to keep the game going and make it interesting.
To make it even.
Have both a Hextech soul on JDG versus a mountain soul on anyone's legend. I think anyone's legend with that, so that would be a fun experience.
I love we're coming down to the what ifs. That's what this game state feels like. And Elder's actually still up as well. That's a dangerous play as they move in. I believe it's close to expiring. We've got the Baron timer in the top right, actually. 5 seconds till it disappears as they're sent to the fountain. JDG, they haven't really lifted too much of a finger, but I will say Kanavi in the early game made all this happen. It's called the Forge God, lands on Missing again. They love this Tahm Kench, and as Betty runs away, JDG are putting the finishing touches on Forge's ulti a little bit early, but he's dead anyway. And with intelligent play, with cleanly taken down anyone's legend in game number 1, what more can you say than JDG holding firm control of the series by their hands?
You know, and going back to that jungle matchup, Hysterics, Kanavi identified, okay, we need to get a lead for my top lane, and we need to make sure that mid lane goes well, that there is no opportunity for a 4-man onto the bot lane to make sure that the Jhin and the Tahm Kench can clear for free. Missing actually playing that pretty well in general, you know, looking for those Tahm Kench engages, the W's and the knockups, a lot of fights starting out, creating a ridiculous amount of space with that in conjunction with Yagao's gravity fields. And then, of course, they just have so much room to poke and then constantly keeping the wave states pushed. Yagao always topside at the correct amount of time, and just not a lot of options for anyone's legend at that point, despite the fact that you look at these compositions and you think, oh, it should be really easy for the side of anyone's legends to execute their comp compared to JDG overall.
I mean, there's so many things that we could break down and talk about the cause for that game 1, like Kanavi's mid pressure onto Forge. Forge's flash being burnt, he returns, he continues forcing him out. Yagao had a great laning phase even before that. 369 versus CDZ is the Jayce, you know, got jungle attention too. And for Xiaohao, he tried to put his eggs in the basket of bottom lane, but hope and missing getting that 2v2 kill. Felt like all the options were just taken away the early game, in an early game that could subdue JDG and stop them from snowballing ahead. It's hard, Kelsey, when we look at this and say, well, anyone's legend could have done this, but for JDG, it's that cleanliness, it's that intelligence that is returning to their gameplay in the later half of the LPL split.
And if I went back to anything and reviewed this, right, looking and talking to anyone's legend, I would say when you're looking for the level 1 invade and you're showing those people on the map, don't necessarily allow them to be able to counter that and get the vision on bot side, because then you can't do anything around your Caitlyn lane and you don't have a lot of options at that point.
Oh god, it's hard to look at, hard even to review. I'd say 369 gets MVP, by the way, which is interesting because it comes down to what we talked about, the poke being huge. The damage percentage will be big as well. 31% when he only had 1 kill kind of tells you that he knew his role in this game and he was playing it to perfection.
And I'm excited to see 369 kind of cash in on that, despite the fact that I would say his 2021 wasn't great, but he played this game very smart. You know, keeping the spacing well. I didn't see really any shock blast whiff. It seemed like they were, you know, targeted skill shots. That's a little bit of an oxymoron, but you know what I mean. So basically, it just felt like he constantly had the aim missile going in and getting those low health members, going past the big hitbox of the Ornn and really selling this game for JDG with the lead that he had.
Again, like, really good to see, especially when for 369, I feel like he's been one of the most solid members when JDG were having their downtime at the start of the split. Against CDG, RNG, JDG looked just strange. You know, even against FPX, it was a question in that series where I think that was a Baron throw that lost FPX, but it has been a series against WE, OMG, top esports even, where they were showing those glimmers of power. JDG currently on a loss streak, but still, I feel confident in this series against anyone's legend. We'll have to see, because we can talk about AL when we come back from the break here.